So how did you move then from this recovery and kind of like step, because this didn't happen overnight. You didn't go to recovery and all of a sudden you're the executive director of MHA, of Mental Health and Addiction Association.
Yeah.
So take me through like kind of the steps you were in that recovery program, and then you of course needed some kind of stable living environment when you got paroled and you went out. Then what happened after that? Were you like in vocational training, or how did that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd like to also just give a little more, so the full picture.
Sure.
I was IV meth use, homeless on the streets for many years, was unable to raise my children, so alcoholic. So that's where I came from.
Right.
So it was a pretty drastic change to be in recovery from that. And so, paroled to my parents, had codependency counseling after, which was probably pretty wise, as follow-up once I was paroled.
And I think these things take time, right? Like to digest. It's not like and I think that's something that people misunderstand or kind of get confused in this day's climate, is you don't just go to a therapist for a couple visits or pop a pill and that dissolves the cause of what's causing you that anguish, and I think that it takes time to not only recover but then also to get into that new routine, be used with being sober, being present, and mindful of everything. That takes time to adjust to.
Absolutely.
And so I guess how then did you become involved with then the peer mentoring? Was that like a goal of yours when you were in recovery, or was that something that serendipitously presented itself?
Yeah, because I had not heard of it. Of course, part of paroling was to go to support groups, self-help support groups, and I did that and started to form a recovery community in my hometown, and then also had gone to Goodwill to help find a job. I had to have a job within 30 days or I was going to go back.
Oh, okay.
And so Goodwill has a program that helps people with barriers get a job, and so I went there and ended up, long story short, got a landscaping job. Did that for 3.5 years. It was great. It was outdoors. It was physically exhausting. It was fresh air. It was just what I needed.
Right.
But, you can't buy a house on minimum wage.
Sure.
And the economy started to tank and people started to mow their own lawns.
Yes.
And so I had started community college by that time. I knew, I'd seen people in my recovery community go back to school. I had dropped out the day I turned 16, got my GED in jail. So that it seemed like, that's possible. I can go back to school. Great. So I did that.
And what were you going to school for?
There was.
What did you land on? I guess no.
Right. There's the pathway was pretty windy. I didn't know what was out there or what my passions were. I thought, it could be something to do with landscape architecture or environmental science or, something to do with outdoors, because that was what was, part of my life at that time. And so I was on unemployment for a little bit. That started to run out and I was looking for a job. My landscape supervisor had gone to the county. And I was thinking, well, maybe, I've got some felonies, but maybe with his, his reference and could get my foot in the door at the county and mow lawns for the county. So I was checking the website, seeing what was there. And there was this peer support job, brand new position at the county. And I started reading it. And it requires someone to have lived experience of addiction recovery and mental health recovery. And I'm like, what is this?
I'm way overqualified for this.
Right? I've been doing this for free in the, recovery groups. And I can talk about my mental health, which sometimes isn't always open and available to do
right.
when there's a singleness of purpose, right? So I applied, went through a few interviews, knew nothing, had to look up the word, what's consumer mean? Oh yeah, that's me. Oh. I was a consumer of services, right? So really just had to look up what the position was, and got in the door with accounting.
That's awesome. So you started as a peer support and then and then went back to schooling and kind of got certificates around that through the college. Is that correct?
Well, so I changed my major a few times and just got a transfer degree from the community college, and then went to Linfield thinking environmental science still. And that's at that same time is when I got the peer support job. So I started thinking about environmental science and psychology. How do you mix that? And that seemed like wilderness therapy, environmental therapy, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And that was the path I thought I needed to take. Yeah. And so I, graduated bachelor's with social and behavioral health sciences from Linfield, and then thought, the route's to be a therapist. And I went to Lewis and Clark for a year in the professional counseling school. Same time, had gone from a county job to a conference called Peerpocalypse while I was there, and there's 89 people there. I saw the larger sort of network of people doing peer work and recovery mentor work, and I thought, this is for me. And that was MHAAO at the time. So there was 4 people working there, and I sort of kept knocking on their door saying, give me a job, give me a job. Yeah. And if I'm rambling,
no, you're
let
good.
me know. Am I talking too much about any single?
Right.
Okay.